If you're an LA sports fan or an LA basketball fan, today's a pretty freaking big day for you because in my previous video, I don't know if you guys missed it or not, we talked about the fact that the Los Angeles Clippers just hired a brand new head coach or just elevated an existing head coach in Tyronn Lue to their full-time head coach. And I'm going to leave a link to that in the description down below or in the end screen. But on top of that, as I was doing research for that video, dude, I just saw so much stuff about the Los Angeles Lakers pop up. And some were very believable. Some is stuff that I could see. And some was just downright bizarre and it was just Laker fans being Laker fans. So being the only logical Laker fan that I know, I'm going to dive into everything I heard today and first inform you of what I'm hearing today to allow you to decide whether you agree with the rumor or not, or if you think it's going to happen or not. And then I'm going to give you my own opinions as well. Now, before we get to the content, I forgot to announce this in my previous video. I'm giving away a ton of PS5s, man, like on Twitter, on Instagram, and on this channel. All you have to do to be entered on this channel is subscribe and turn on my notifications. I'm just going to pick a random member of Noti Gang to win a PS5. And also there's instructions in the description down below as to how to enter my Twitter and Instagram ones. Now that we got all that out of the way, cue the intro. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? Guys, we're gonna start with something that seems very realistic to me. So at the conclusion of the NBA Finals, there are multiple Laker free agents or free agents to be that are set to potentially hit the market. And the very first player that we need to discuss is Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. You see, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who was pretty much an unsung hero during the NBA playoffs and the NBA Finals, is expected to decline his $8.5 million player option for the 2020 to 2021 season with the Lakers and hit free agency. Now, the Lakers and KCP do have significant mutual interest, but there are additional suitors. One potential suitor includes the Atlanta Hawks, who have cap space and could emerge with interest in KCP. This is to be expected. You see this all the time. A player of a championship caliber roster who did a phenomenal job filling his role in the playoffs, potentially moving to a lesser team or a more up-and-coming team. The number one player that comes to mind is Harrison Barnes. Harrison Barnes, first of all, didn't even have a choice to return to the Golden State Warriors after their incredible 73-win season. But he was able to join the Dallas Mavericks, and from Dallas, he kind of jumped to the Sacramento Kings. He kind of found out about that in an ugly way, but at the end of the day, he got paid a decent amount of money to do so. So I don't think KCP would want to accept $8 million this year, especially when there was a season where he made $18 million in the 2017 season, especially now that he's won a championship. There's nothing really much here for him with the Los Angeles Lakers. So I wouldn't be surprised if KCP moved on from the Lakers and joined a team like the Hawks. So this is very believable to me. Also expected to hit free agency is the 34-year-old Rajon Rondo, who won a championship with both the Boston Celtics and the Los Angeles Lakers and is the first player to do so. The other player did it with the Minneapolis Lakers, so we're not really going to count that. And it's understandable why he would want to do this, because he literally got paid the vet minimum the past 2 seasons. He won a championship, mission accomplished. He rehabbed his stock, and he looks like he has plenty left in the tank. Bear in mind, the Lakers paid Rondo $9 million 2 seasons ago, and again, there's a chance that Rondo does return to the Los Angeles Lakers, but for now, I don't really blame him for exploring his options elsewhere. And the final one is the fact that Dwight Howard is also going to be a free agent. And, well, the Golden State Warriors have already expressed interest in Dwight Howard. And I could see Dwight Howard moving on from the Lakers as well, or I could see him staying here because this is probably the place that he has had the most career success in quite some time. And I guess I could understand a situation where he wouldn't want to mess that up, especially now that he feels accepted by the Lakers again. So you could really go either way because I don't really know what Dwight Howard's value is. If he's willing to accept his reduced role and maybe a slight raise over the veteran minimum, then I'm sure he'll come back to the Lakers. And if not, then I'm sure he'll probably go to the Warriors, especially if the Warriors are willing to pay a little extra for him. And finally, I don't think I need to discuss this very much because I think the proof is in the pudding. Anthony Davis is officially opting out of his contract, but he's not opting out to leave. He's opting out with the intention of re-signing with the Los Angeles Lakers. He's mainly doing this because, well, he'll earn the most revenue for doing so. He can make way more money if he signs a brand new contract in the offseason. Now for the reason why I feel like 80% of y'all clicked on the video. There are two potential trades that popped up in front of my face. One makes absolutely no sense at all for the Lakers, and one makes absolutely no sense at all from the perspective of a rival GM willing to give up that much for said player. So we're going to start with the very first rumor I heard when I woke up today. If you woke up and logged on to Bleacher Report, you'd see that there was this article about Chris Paul potentially getting traded to the Los Angeles Lakers. And to summarize that long article into about 20 to 30 seconds, the rationale is LeBron James and CP3 have been BFFs dating all the way back to like 2003. You know, they played youth ball together. They're like really close and really tight. They've always wanted to play on the same team together. And, well, there was supposed to be some sort of trade that allowed for Chris Paul to join LeBron James when Anthony Davis came over this past season. That never materialized, and Chris Paul got traded to the Thunder instead because Anthony Davis got traded to the Lakers in the offseason as opposed to the middle of the season. Well, now Chris Paul rehabbed his player stock and his value, but he is getting paid an obscene amount of money. Obscene meaning that he's getting paid $41 million in his age 35 season for this year, and he has a player option for the 2021 to 2022 season next year for $44 million. And let me be honest with you, man, I know Chris Paul probably wants a ring, but if you're a 36-year-old point guard that's getting paid $44 million, there is no way in hell you're ever going to turn down that player option, especially if LeBron's in your... It doesn't matter if LeBron's in your ear saying, dude, please do it for me. I don't think Chris Paul would want a championship that badly. It really depends on how much a championship means to CP3.
Hold on a minute, player.
This makes absolutely zero sense to me whatsoever. The only rationale that people are giving about this is LeBron James holds significant influence over the Lakers, and therefore he's going to try to force a deal for Chris Paul. But that just doesn't make sense. Like, if you think about what the Lakers would have to give up in order to acquire Chris Paul, they could literally trade Danny Green, Quinn Cook, Alex Caruso, Kyle Kuzma, as many draft picks as they possibly want, and they still wouldn't be able to pull off this trade because the cap space just doesn't work. They're paying Anthony Davis an obscene amount of money this offseason. They're also going to be paying LeBron James $37 million this season. Chris Paul has a bigger cap hit on the Lakers, or would have a bigger cap hit on the Lakers than LeBron James would by about $1 million. So no matter how many salary cap gymnastics that you do, the Lakers simply cannot accept Chris Paul's contract because it's just simply too expensive. We're literally talking about a difference of $15 million when you offer every single player on the Lakers that isn't hitting free agency. So there's no way this could work unless if Chris Paul accepts a buyout or Chris Paul opts out of the final year of his contract at the end of next year. So if you ask me, I think the more realistic trade destination for Chris Paul would probably be a team like the Milwaukee Bucks, or if they want to ship him to New York so his career could die off there, that's possible. It really is all to do with Chris Paul. The Lakers can't acquire Chris Paul in the means of a trade. It doesn't matter how badly LeBron James wants him, and even if he does want him that badly, it's just not smart. You know, you should never let your emotions get in the way of conducting good business, and I know Chris Paul and LeBron James are really close friends, but as good as Chris Paul is, you could get such better value as opposed to paying a player on the wrong side of 30 the amount that he wants. This next trade rumor that I heard is even more bizarre, and I needed to talk about this as well, because forget about Chris Paul, Laker fans actually think that they could trade Danny Green, Kyle Kuzma, Avery Bradley, JaVale McGee, and do a sign and trade including KCP, and give up a 2020 first round pick for Bradley BEAL.
We'll be there every year that he's here.
And we're gonna bring some pieces in. Don't think we set. We not set.
Hey, you know Bradley BEAL just moved to LA, huh?
Oh! Skip here, you remember that?
Yeah.
If we get Bradley BEAL, it's over for the next 3 years.
How are you gonna fit him under?
Don't worry about it.
Let's just sit here for a second, okay? Could you pretend that you are the general manager of the Washington Wizards for 1 second? and the Lakers approach you with a trade package of Danny Green, Kyle Kuzma, Avery Bradley, JaVale McGee, KCP, 2020 first round pick, and let's say they throw Talon Horton Tucker in there as well. Are you going to accept that? Like, take a moment. Are you going to accept that? You're the general manager of the Wizards. Bear in mind, Bradley Beal has not demanded a trade, and he's under contract until the end of the 2022 season. He has a player option for the 2023 season. I understand he bought a house in LA. Okay, Laker fans love bringing that up. He bought a house in LA. It's meant to be. He's definitely going to be a Laker. No, he's not. That's not possible. It really isn't. There's no way he could just waltz into the Lakers at this point. He has no way of getting there. First of all, there's not enough assets to entice the Wizards to jump on such a trade. But I'll give you this. This trade, believe it or not, is more realistic than the Chris Paul trade because Bradley Beal is making $10 million less per year than Chris Paul is. I guess if you throw in an obscene amount of first round picks, kind of similarly to what the Clippers gave up for Paul George, if you gave up like 3 future first round picks in random years where your team is probably going to be like bad, then I could assume that, yeah, maybe the Wizards will go for that. But you also need a Bradley Beal that's like stamping his feet and demanding a trade despite him being under contract for so long. So if your player is not disgruntled, and in this situation Bradley Beal is not disgruntled at all, then the only reason you would ever trade a player would be if it just makes no sense for you to have the player anymore. And you can make an argument for the Wizards that it might not make a lot of sense for them to have Bradley Beal on the roster anymore. But why would you trade with the Lakers when you could try to approach the Miami Heat and say, hey, you have a bunch of young assets and a lot of good young players, and we would like 1 or 2 of them. You know, maybe, I don't think this will happen, but maybe you can entice them to give up Tyler Hero. Maybe you can entice them to give up Duncan Robinson. Maybe you can entice them to give up Adebayo. I don't think so, but maybe. And maybe if they turn that down, if you can't get your hands on a good young prospect, then maybe plan C would be Kyle Kuzma and Alex Caruso and Danny Green and Markieff Morris and Quinn Cook and a bunch of first round picks. Maybe. I think it's more realistic than the Chris Paul trade. I don't think there's a great likelihood of it happening, but I think it's a little bit more realistic than the CP3 trade. So let me know in the comment section down below, what do you think? Do you think Bradley Beal is about to nudge himself to LA the same way Anthony Davis nudged himself to LA about a year ago? Well, we'll find out if he decides to hire Rich Paul in Clutch Sports, because that's the first way to do it. Aside from that, I hope you guys enjoyed our second upload of the day. I'm your boy, The Flight Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.